When you're training for something, you're prepared for those moments where you're tested, and you don't have to turn your shoulder and run. You can face it and you can overcome it.
Hey guys, we're doing a series today on stop living in survival mode, and today's chapter is running versus training. And I'm Weston Ritchie, this is Chris Hinckley, and we talk about mental health, we talk about life, we talk about transformation, and we talk about growth. So today, we're going to dive in. Chris, what do you feel about running versus training?
So running versus training, what that means to me is I think there's a lot of things in life we run from versus what we train for in those moments. And so what does that mean in itself? When you're running from something, you're trying to escape. You're trying to cover it up. You're trying to just escape the problem, really. Escape, right? And when you're training for it, you're preparing yourself for those moments you know are coming up in life. Like, you know, when you're up on a high that there's going to be lows later on. It's just a part of life. It's a wave, right? Just ride the wave. And so when you run from something, you don't actually solve it. That's what creates trauma, and that's what usually hurts other people around you. When you're training for something, you're prepared for those moments where you're tested, and you don't have to turn your shoulder and run. You can face it and you can overcome it.
And so what is the training side? So if you go from running to training, so you kind of just mentioned running, of, running away from your problems, running away from your trauma, running away from people. What does training mean?
So I go back to my marathon training. To get to 26.2 miles, you could just wake up randomly and run every single day. But, I had a time limit of 3.5 months before I had signed up for my race. So I knew I needed to be calculated. I knew that my training had to be scheduled and locked in so that over the next 3.5 months, I could go from running 4 miles to running 26.2 and executing at a high level because I have a high expectation for myself. So I didn't just wake up every day and run a random amount of miles just to try and get to this end goal, or really just escape from all the chaos that was currently happening in my life. I was training for something specific, and I was intentional with my goals so that I wasn't like just running to this goal or running away from something. I was training for it. So when I get to that day, I know that I've put the work in to execute properly.
So quick question. If you were to run on a treadmill the same amount that you did outside, okay, same miles every day, you had your schedule, you had your structure, would it still be hard to go run a marathon outside if you ran on a treadmill every day?
I think they're two different hards, really, and I don't want to get too in depth with it, but I think running on a treadmill doesn't prepare you for the elements of what a marathon training entails. So in a way, you could get the distance down and you could bump up the incline and drop it down and do that if you wanted to, but you won't be in the heat. You won't be in the cold. And like I said, that's real life. That's running. So in a sense, you're training in an environment that isn't the same as the one that you're going to be tested in. So in a way, your training is good, but it's not as good as it could be because it's not really like what you're going to be accomplishing.
So just to simplify it, would you say running is comfortable on a treadmill and then running outside, different temperatures, different scenes, different things, would you say is the uncomfortable?
For the sake of this conversation, yes, but in reality, no. It's the opposite. Because for instance, like running on a treadmill mentally is so much harder than running outside because you're seeing the same thing for hours on end. Like when you talk about running a half marathon, that's an hour 45, and that's like an 8-minute pace. Like it's a really fast pace. So you're sitting on that treadmill looking at the same thing for an hour and 45 minutes. Like physically, that's not what you're worried about, but mentally is the hardest part of training for a marathon. So when you're outside, you're seeing a bunch of different things going on. You're on a trail and there's trees or there's people passing. You're running through a city and you're dodging. So like your mind is constantly, it's staying activated. But when you are working really hard and all you can focus on is working really hard and you have nothing to distract you, that's when the mental side of things gets really difficult.
So this is exactly what I wanted to open up, right? You have two sides of running.
Yeah.
Right? You have one side that's very, controlled. It's very, same thing every single different time, right? And then you have the other running, which is different kind of running, but your mental is more clear, right? And so you have one side that the running on the treadmill is, this is very easy in a way, but my mental's not okay.
Yeah, that's what makes it hard.
And then you have, running outside, which physical could be hard, but the mental's better.
Yep.
Right? And so you think about running and training, how those can be different. You think about life for a second. right? Those two running experiences are exactly what is the struggle with growing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is you have, I'm okay mentally or I'm not okay mentally. Physically, I'm okay, but you're avoiding at some point, at some part of that, right? So when you run outside, you're avoiding through distractions,
Yes.
right? You're dealing with it through distractions of I can physically do this, but mentally it's much easier, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with life, right? And then you have the running on a treadmill where, mental is freaking hard, but I can do it,
Yeah.
right? And I just think of life that way. And so when I think of running and training, I think of applying, real life experiences. And when I went through different phases in my life, it was like looking down on both sides of the lane of like, I can do this, but my mental's not going to be very good. Or I can kind of do this, but my mental's going to be great. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to almost pick that hard decision of what's best for you and then apply that to training.
Yeah.
So when it comes to training is like, you have to wake up and do the hard stuff to grow.
Yeah.
And then finally figure out a way to believe in yourself.
Well, it's like if you wake up and your training is the comfortable environment. Well, what happens when you're on the race day, right? You're not going to be comfortable in the elements. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The reason I didn't finish my marathon the way I wanted to is because I didn't really learn and train for the one thing that I needed to focus on the most, which was to finish strong. I wanted to finish at a certain time, and that was my focus. So I didn't really have enough time in my training to get to where I wanted to be because it was such a short amount of time, but my focus was off, which is why I didn't finish the way I wanted to. I started super strong, but once I got to 20, 22 miles, I started to fall off because I hadn't gone further than that before. Mentally, I hadn't prepped myself for doing that extra 4.2 miles, which were literally the hardest miles I have ever run. And half of it I walked and I crawled. So if I would have trained to finish better, I would have been able to accomplish it the way I wanted to. But my goal, my focus was off, which is why I ended up in the situation I did. I was unhappy.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that. And I think that's part of this is, if I tell you to go run, how far? What pace? What's the terrain? What's it like outside? Versus training is a organized structure towards a specific mission and accomplishing that specific task.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the space we're at now is like in our business is we just used to run.
Yeah.
I did specifically more than you. It's just like go run, sprint, blah, 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 but it's not organized. What are we even trying to do? All the different things like that. And so I think anybody that's listening to this needs to understand the difference between running and training is when you really want to build something and you want to grow something and you want to bring people along with you, you're going to have to get a structured system to be able to accomplish the specific goal versus making it an unknown. We know exactly where we're going right now because we're in the known. It's not necessarily perfectly clear, on like, okay, 5 days we're going to make this money or 10 days we're going to have this project. But we have a specific mission that we're organized and prepared for when that mission's actually ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we'd like to say we're more prepared than we are, but there's an aspect of that, especially in what we do, where it's like FitFo. It's like figure it out, from our buddy Mark, where you're not always going to have everything prepped and planned out. And that's a part of the plan, right? A part of the plan is knowing that it's going to shift, knowing that you're going to have to pivot at certain times because what you set out to do versus when you're actually in it are two very different things. And we've seen that in the last 5 years of our life, right? Like if you were to ask us, where is the future of exclusive productions going? Our answer 5 years ago compared to our answer now is entirely different.
I would say in my brain, it's very similar, but I never knew how to describe it.
Yeah.
I never knew how to
Wasn't clear.
explain it. Like it's there. Like I've always had a very similar idea from 5 years ago. It's just like when you ask more questions, you get more answers, right? And you do that to yourself. And then I get to ask you, hey, what's the dream look like for you? And it's like, oh, he has a great idea. Let's innovate this idea, right? And then I have an idea and you're like, ooh, let's add this on it. And so I think it just created this like multi-layer dream with multiple people.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fun part about life is just being able to build that with a group of people you actually want to be around. It's like imagine building a skyscraper with one room in it. That doesn't make much sense. Yeah. It's like, no, we're going to build a bunch of rooms in this to build one awesome building. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of the thing with the dream that we're trying to create with Exclusive is let's build all this together and make everybody feel like they are a part of it and make them a part of it to where it's a real dream for multiple people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best dreams are when like it's a collaboration of like tons of people together. Like we have something in mind, we have a vision, but like you said, that's going to change the more people we bring into it in a good way, not a bad way, because they're going to provide solutions or they're going to bring different ideas to the table and help us think in ways that we haven't before. Because, like I said, the idea of what we have for exclusive in the future, 5 years later, we're going to look back and be like, man, we did not understand the full scope of this thing. I guarantee it. So,
No, it's bigger than we can imagine now. God's just preparing us for what it is right now to develop it later.
right.
You
Yeah.
know, and he's putting the right people in place to put a brick down to build the road even longer, or build it wider, or build it taller, or whatever the case is. But I think that's part of the training versus running is the training is a well thought out vision dream with a structure in place to actually accomplish those specific things versus running is just, hey, it's free for all. And I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I'm just going to try anyway.
Yeah, the difference between running and training is the intention, right? So instead of just walking outside and going for a run or going into the gym every single day for a year and just randomly working out, it's figure out, well, do I want to get bigger or do I want to get leaner? Do I want to run for distance or do I want to run for speed? And all of these things will help get you clarity so that you no longer have to just vaguely run in whatever aspect that means is you can actually know like what you're running to and have a plan behind it to fall back on when motivation isn't there.
We both know that better than anyone.
Yeah.
So if you're in a space where you feel like you're running or you're training, you need to get clarity on what those actually are. And then you need to audit on both sides. It's like, what am I running from and what am I training for? Right. And kind of getting an idea of what does my dream life really look like? Right. Exclusive lifestyle is not just our own way we live. It's building a lifestyle for each individual person to develop training versus running. Stop running from their pain, stop running from their trauma, stop running from their relationship, and identifying who they're supposed to be and who they're supposed to be with, as well as what they're building. And if you can identify those things, then you can build a structure around inside the training side that actually can change your life and live like us in a space where we actually wake up and love what we do every day with the people we love. So stay tuned for the next series, next episode, next chapter, whatever it's called at this point, and we'll see you later.